Hello everyone, and welcome to the first episode of Storytime with Mr. Haque. Now, some of you will have been tuning in to follow Mr. Smith's reading of Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone last half term. This half term, you will be aware, he has doubled up on the fun and will not only be reading the second part of the Harry Potter series, The Chamber of Secrets, but also 1984 by George Orwell. Now, what I will be doing here is kind of like a spin-off of Mr. Smith's successful series. There are so many great stories to read, and we want to give you the opportunity to experience as many of these that we can. You can switch on here during the morning reading session or at another time at your convenience. I'm going to begin by reading a book by Isaac Asimov. It is a collection of short stories and was first published in 1950. This book was chosen by you as a book you'd like to hear in the recent poll that Mr. Smith conducted. The book is called I, Robot. I am going to begin with the first story in the collection. These sessions will last around 15 minutes, just enough time for you to be doing your daily morning reading. In that 15 minutes, we may not finish the whole story, so we'll pick it up the following day. I am trying to do this in one take, so if I do make any mistakes, please accept my apologies and bear with me. Okay, so I, Robot by Isaac Asimov. The book begins with a very helpful introduction, and it describes the 3 laws of robotics. The 3 laws of robotics are as follows. 1. A robot may not injure a human being or through inaction allow a human being to come to harm. 2. A robot must obey the orders given it by human beings, except where such orders would conflict with the first law. And 3, a robot must protect its own existence as long as such protection does not conflict with the first or second law. Okay, so the first book in the series is called Robbie. 98, 99, 100. Gloria withdrew her chubby little forearm from before her eyes and stood for a moment, wrinkling her nose and blinking in the sunlight. Then, trying to watch in all directions at once, she withdrew a few cautious steps from the tree against which she had been leaning. She craned her neck to investigate the possibilities of a clump of bushes to the right, and then withdrew further to obtain a better angle for viewing its dark recesses. The quiet was profound, except for the incessant buzzing of insects and the occasional chirrup of some hardy bird braving the midday sun. Gloria pouted. I bet he went inside the house, and I've told him 1,000,000 times that that's not fair. With tiny lips pressed together tightly and a severe frown crinkling her forehead, she moved determinedly toward the 2-story building up past the driveway. Too late, she heard the rustling sound behind her, followed by the distinctive and rhythmic clump of Robbie's metal feet. She whirled about to see her triumphing companion emerge from hiding and make for the home tree at full speed. Gloria shrieked in dismay. "Wait, Robbie! That wasn't fair. Robbie, you promised you wouldn't run until I found you." Her little feet could make no headway at all against Robbie's giant strides. Then, within 10 feet of the goal, Robbie's pace slowed suddenly to the merest of crawls and Gloria, with one final burst of wild speed, dashed pantingly past him to touch the welcome bark of Home Tree first. Gleefully she turned on the faithful Robbie, and with the basest of ingratitude rewarded him for his sacrifice by taunting him cruelly for a lack of running ability. "Robbie can't run," she shouted at the top of her 8-year-old voice. "I can beat him any day. I can beat him any day," she chanted the words in a shrill rhythm. Robbie didn't answer, of course, not in words. Her pantomimed running instead, inching away until Gloria found herself running after him as he dodged her narrowly, forcing her to veer in helpless circles, little arms outstretched and fanning at the air. "Robbie!" she squealed. "Stand still!" And the laughter was forced out of her in breathless jerks. Until he turned suddenly and caught her up, whirling her round so that for her the world fell away for a moment, with a blue emptiness beneath and green trees stretching hungrily downward towards the void. Then she was down in the grass again, leaning against Robbie's leg and still holding a hard metal finger. After a while, her breath returned. She pushed uselessly at her dishevelled hair in vague imitation of one of her mother's gestures, and twisted to see if her dress were torn. She slapped her hand against Robbie's torso. "Bad boy, I'll spank you!" And Robbie cowered, holding his hands over his face, so that she had to add, "No, I won't, Robbie. I won't spank you. But anyway, it's my turn to hide now, because you've got longer legs and you promised not to run till I found you." Robbie nodded his head. A small, parallel pipe with rounded edges and corner attached to a similar but much larger parallel pipe that served a torso by means of a short, flexible stalk, and obediently faced the tree. A thin metal film descended over his glowing eyes, and from within his body came a steady, resonant ticking. "Don't peek now, and don't skip any numbers," warned Gloria, and scurried for cover. With unvarying regularity, seconds were ticked off, and at the 100th up went the eyelids, and the glowing red of Robbie's eyes swept the prospect. They rested for a moment on a bit of colourful gingham that protruded from behind a boulder. He advanced a few steps and convinced himself that it was Gloria who squatted behind it. Slowly, remaining always between Gloria and Home Tree, he advanced on the hiding place, and when Gloria was plainly in sight and could no longer even theorize to herself that she was not seen, he extended one arm towards her, slapping the other against his leg so that it rang again. Gloria emerged sulkily. "You peaked!" she exclaimed with gross unfairness. "Besides, I'm tired of playing hide and seek. I want a ride." But Robbie was hurt at the unjust accusation, so he seated himself down and shook his head ponderously from side to side. Gloria changed her tone to one of gentle coaxing immediately. "Come on, Robbie. I didn't mean it about the peeking. Give me a ride." Robbie was not to be won over so easily, though. He gazed stubbornly at the sky and shook his head even more emphatically. "Please, Robbie, please give me a ride." She encircled his neck with rosy arms and hugged tightly. Then, changing moods in a moment, she moved away. "If you don't, I'm going to cry," and her face twisted appallingly in preparation. Hard-hearted Robbie paid scant attention to this dreadful possibility and shook his head a third time. Gloria found it necessary to play her trump card. "If you don't," she exclaimed warmly, "I won't tell you any more stories. That's all. Not one." Robbie gave in immediately and unconditionally before this ultimatum, nodding his head vigorously until the metal of his neck hummed. Carefully he raised the little girl and placed her on his broad, flat shoulders. Gloria's threatened tears vanished immediately, and she crowed with delight. Robbie's metal skin, kept at a constant temperature of 70 by the high resistance coils within, felt nice and comfortable, while the beautifully loud sound her heels made as they bumped rhythmically against his chest was enchanting. "You're an air coaster, Robbie. You're a big silver air coaster. Hold out your arms straight. You've got to, Robbie, if you're going to be an air coaster." The logic was irrefutable. Robbie's arms were wings catching the air currents, and he was a silver coaster. Gloria twisted the robot's head and leaned to the right. He banked sharply. Gloria equipped the coaster with a motor that went brrr, and then with weapons that went pow and shh. Pirates were giving chase, and the ship's blasters were coming into play. The pirates dropped in a steady rain. "Got another one! 2 more!" she cried. Then, "Faster, men!" Gloria said pompously. "We're running out of ammunition!" She aimed over her shoulder with undaunted courage, and Robbie was a blunt-nosed spaceship zooming through the void at maximum acceleration. Clear across the field he sped to the patch of tall grass on the other side, where he stopped with a suddenness that evoked a shriek from his flushed rider, and then tumbled her onto the soft green carpet. Gloria gasped and panted and gave voice to intermittent whispered exclamations of, "That was nice." Robbie waited until she had caught her breath and pulled gently at a lock of hair. "You want something?" said Gloria, eyes wide in an apparently artless complexity that fooled her huge nursemaid not at all. He pulled the curl harder. "Oh, I know. You want a story." Robbie nodded rapidly. "Which one?" Robbie made a semicircle in the air with one finger. The little girl protested. "Again? I've told you Cinderella 1,000,000 times. Aren't you tired of it? It's for babies." Another semicircle. "Oh, hell!" Gloria composed herself, ran over the details of the tale in her mind, together with her own elaborations of which she had several, and began. "Are you ready? Well, once upon a time, there was a beautiful little girl whose name was Ella, and she had a terribly cruel stepmother and 2 very ugly and very cruel stepsisters, and..." Gloria was reaching the very climax of the tale. Midnight was striking, and everything was changing back to the shabby originals lickety-split, while Robbie listened tensely with burning eyes when the interruption came. "Gloria!" It was the high-pitched sound of a woman who had been calling not once but several times, and had the nervous tone of one in whom anxiety was beginning to overcome impatience. "Mama's calling me," said Gloria, not quite happily. "You'd better carry me back to the house, Robbie." Robbie obeyed with alacrity, for somehow there was that in him which judged it best to obey Mrs. Weston without as much as a scrap of hesitation. Gloria's father was rarely home in the daytime except on Sunday, today for instance, and when he was, he proved a genial and understanding person. Gloria's mother, however, was a source of uneasiness to Robbie, and there was always the impulse to sneak away from her sight. Mrs. Weston caught sight of them the minute they rose above the musking tufts of long grass and retired inside the house to wait. "I've shouted myself hoarse, Gloria," she said severely. "Where were you?" "I was with Robbie," quavered Gloria. I was telling him Cinderella, and I forgot it was dinner time." "Well, it's a pity Robbie forgot too." Then, as if that reminded her of the robot's presence, she whirled up on him. "You may go, Robbie. She doesn't need you now." Then brutally, "And don't come back till I call you." Robbie turned to go, but hesitated as Gloria cried out in his defence. "Wait, Mama, you gotta let him stay. I didn't finish Cinderella for him. I said I would tell him Cinderella, and I'm not finished." "Gloria!" "Honest and truly, Mama, he'll stay so quiet you won't even know he's here. He can sit on the chair in the corner and he won't say a word. I mean, he won't do anything. Will you, Robbie?" Robbie appealed too, nodded his massive head up and down once. "Gloria, if you don't stop this at once, you shan't see Robbie for a whole week." The girl's eyes fell. "All right, but Cinderella's his favourite story, and I didn't finish it, and he likes it so much." The robot left with a disconsolate step, and Gloria choked back a sob. Okay, right, we're going to leave that there. Tomorrow we will pick up with the rest of Robbie. Okay, guys, have a wonderful evening, and I shall see you tomorrow.